It was almost 11 p.m. The sky was swallowed by thick clouds, the moon barely showing through, and the only light on the lonely highway came from the passing headlights of trucks and the dim yellow glow of the gas station sign. I pulled up on my old bike, killed the engine, and stepped into the small office. This was my first night shift at this gas station, sitting in the middle of nowhere, about 7 miles out of town. Fields stretched out on both sides, and the only sound was the occasional rumble of a semi speeding by. Inside, the office was as bare as it gets. A rickety wooden desk, a dusty logbook, a creaky chair, and a shelf stacked with a few old files. But what caught my eye immediately was a framed board hanging on the wall. Bold letters read, "Night shift rules. Follow them at all costs." I froze. Slowly, I stepped closer and read the list. My stomach tightened with each line. These weren't normal safety instructions. They weren't about fire hazards or robbery prevention. These were something else. The rules 1. After midnight, if a car pulls in without a license plate, do not fuel it. Just smile and say, "Systems down." 2. If someone stands at the pump staring at you without speaking, do not look back. 3. Never lean out the office window to look outside. What you'll see is not human. 4. If you hear a child laughing from the restroom, shut the lights off immediately and stay put until it stops. 5. At 2:33 a.m., if the phone rings, do not answer. 6. If you hear a woman crying for help outside, do not step out. 7. While fueling, if you see your reflection in the glass blink on its own, close your eyes immediately. 8. If the sun rises before 5 a.m., understand it isn't the real sun. Hide. 9. If you hear someone crying in the storage room or changing room, never open the door. 10. Final rule. If you feel like someone is urging you to break these rules, it's already too late. I let out a nervous laugh. "This has to be a joke," I muttered under my breath. Just then, the office door creaked open. In walked Mr. Shekawat, the station owner. He was in his mid-50s, slouched shoulders, tired eyes, and a smile that never quite reached his face. "Listen, kid," he said, pointing at the board. "Those rules aren't a prank. Follow them if you want to last the night. The last guy who ignored them, well, let's just say he didn't make it till morning." My throat went dry. "You mean he quit?" The owner stared at me for a long second, then turned and walked out without answering. I was alone now. The wall clock ticked closer and closer to midnight. 11:59. I instinctively moved toward the window, but the third rule flashed in my mind. Never look out the window. I sat down in the creaky chair, my pulse racing. Outside, the pump stood in silence, the shadows stretching long across the asphalt. And then, as the clock struck 12 a.m., the fluorescent lights flickered. A car pulled up to the pump, a black sedan, and it had no license plate. The car idled quietly at the pump. Its headlights cut through the fog that had started to roll in, but there was no movement inside. No driver, no passenger, just a black sedan humming softly in the night. My hands went clammy. Rule number 1. If a car pulls in without a license plate, don't fuel it. I stayed seated, gripping the edge of the desk. But after a few seconds, the car's horn blared. A single, sharp honk that made me flinch. The sound echoed unnaturally across the empty highway, louder than it should have been. I stood up. The pumps were maybe 30 feet from the office, and through the glass, I could see a shape in the driver's seat now. A figure, perfectly still. It wasn't moving, but I felt its eyes on me. "Systems down," I whispered, my voice trembling. Then, louder, as if it could hear me. "Systems down. Can't fuel you tonight." The car didn't move. The figure didn't react. 5 seconds. 10. And then, Without a sound, the car headlights flicked off. Darkness swallowed the lot. I blinked, and when my eyes adjusted, the car was gone. Just gone. No engine sound. No tires rolling across gravel. 1 second it was there, the next, nothing. I let out a shaky laugh and leaned back into the chair. Okay, I muttered. One rule down, 9 to go, but I didn't feel safe. Not even close. 2:33 a.m. hours crawled by. A couple of real customers showed up. Truckers mostly. They paid, fueled, and left. Normal enough. But the whole time, I couldn't stop glancing at the Board of Rules, as if those words were watching me. By 2:30 a.m., I was fighting off sleep, sipping burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup. That's when the clock ticked over. 2:33, and right on cue, the phone rang. The shrill sound pierced the silence, vibrating through the cramped office. My heart skipped. Rule number 5. If the phone rings at 2:33 a.m., do not answer. The phone kept ringing and ringing. I stared at it, my mind screaming at me not to touch it. But the longer it rang, the more it felt like someone, or something, was on the other end, waiting. Like if I just picked it up, I'd understand. By the 13th ring, I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my hands over my ears. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And then, silence. I lowered my hands. The phone sat there, dead and quiet. But before I could breathe in relief, the receiver clicked, like someone had picked it up from the other end. A whisper crackled through the line, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. Greater than, "Why didn't you answer?" The line went dead. The knock by 3:15, my nerves were shot. I kept pacing the tiny office, peeking at the door, the pumps, the clock. That's when the knock came. 3 slow taps on the office door. I froze. My blood ran cold. There was a window right beside the door, but rule number 3 rang in my head. Never look outside the window. Another 3 knocks, louder this time. Then a voice, a woman's voice, soft, shaky. Please, help me. My knees almost buckled. Rule number 6. If you hear a woman crying for help, do not step out. The knocking grew frantic. The woman's sobs grew louder. Please, they're chasing me. I need to come in, please. I backed away from the door, shaking my head. No, 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 the handle rattled. Let me in. I stumbled into the chair, my heart racing so hard I thought it would burst. And then, just as suddenly as it started, silence. The knocking stopped. The sobbing stopped. But when I looked at the bottom crack of the door, where the moonlight slipped in, I saw shadows. Not one. Dozens. Writhing, twitching shadows, pressed up against the other side. And then, in unison, they whispered, "Greater than break the rules." The whispers didn't fade right away. For almost a full minute, I sat frozen in that chair, listening to dozens of voices hissing in unison through the thin door. Break the rules. Break the rules. And then, nothing. Just the hum of the fluorescent light overhead. I didn't move for a long time. My body felt heavy, like if I even twitched, they'd know. Eventually, I forced myself to look at the rules board again, clinging to it like a lifeline. Rule number 6. Don't go outside for the crying woman. I hadn't. I was safe. At least for now. 3:45 a.m. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is jerking awake to the sound of muffled sobbing. At first, I thought it was coming from outside again. The woman. But no. This was different. Softer. Closer. The sound was coming from the storage room. My stomach turned cold. Rule number 9. If you hear crying from the storage room or changing room, do not open the door. The crying grew louder, fragile and broken, like a child hiding in the dark. I glanced at the storage room door. It was only a few feet away from the office desk. A plain wooden door with a rusted padlock that never quite latched properly. Knots twisted in my chest. Every instinct told me to get up, open it, help whoever was in there. But the rule echoed in my mind. Never open the door. The crying turned into wailing, sharp and desperate. My hands trembled against the desk. "Stop," I whispered. "Just stop." Then came the worst part. The crying voice began saying my name. "Daniel." It was faint at first, but then it grew clearer. A childlike voice, broken, trembling. "Daniel, help me." My blood turned to ice. Nobody here knew my name except the owner. Nobody. I pressed my palms to my ears. "You're not real. You're not real." But the voice shifted, deepening, twisting. It wasn't a child anymore. It wasn't even human. "Greater than Daniel, open the door." The padlock rattled violently. The door shook against its frame. I fell backward out of the chair, scrambling toward the opposite wall, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. But there was nowhere to run. After what felt like forever, the rattling stopped. The crying stopped. The silence was worse. The reflection. By 4:20, I was a wreck. My head pounded, my throat was dry, and I couldn't stop glancing at the storage door, waiting for it to move again. A truck pulled in around then. An old rusted Ford, headlights dim. The driver hidden behind dark glass. I almost wanted it to be a normal customer, something human to ground me. I walked out to the pump slowly, keeping my eyes down. My hands shook as I slid the nozzle into the tank. That's when I saw it. In the glass of the truck window, I caught my own reflection, only it wasn't mine. The reflection's eyes were already open, staring directly at me. And then it blinked. I hadn't blinked. I stumbled back, heart hammering. My reflection didn't move with me. It just smiled. Wide, unnatural. The driver's side window began to roll down, but no one was inside. Just the reflection, still grinning at me from the glass. Rule number 7. If your reflection blinks on its own, close your eyes immediately. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard it hurt. My body shook as I held my breath. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the sound of the truck engine roared. I opened my eyes, and the truck was gone. No taillights, no tire marks, just gone. 4:59 a.m. Back inside the office, I sank into the chair, whispering the rules to myself like a prayer. That's when the light outside shifted. A pale orange glow crept across the lot. I shot up. The clock read 4:59, and outside, the sun was rising. But it was too early, much too early. The sky outside bled orange, streaks of red burning through the clouds. The station lot was bathed in warm light, brighter than it had any right to be. But the clock on the wall still read 4:59 a.m. My pulse spiked. Rule number 8. If the sun rises before 5 a.m., it isn't real. Hide. The glow grew sharper, hotter, like the light itself was alive. I backed away from the window, heart hammering. Every shadow in the office stretched and twisted unnaturally across the floor, pulling toward the door, like they were being dragged. And then I heard them again. The whispers. "Break the rules. Break the rules." They weren't outside this time. They were inside the office. I stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. My eyes darted to the storage room door. From behind it, sobbing started again, louder, harsher. The padlock rattled, wood splintering as the door shook violently. "Greater than Daniel, open the door." "No!" I screamed. "I won't!" The whispers circled me, pressing in closer. The light outside was pouring through the cracks, blinding, searing. Then the phone rang. 2:33 a.m. had long passed, but the phone shrieked again anyway. The rules were breaking down. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the sound pierced through. On instinct, or maybe madness, I grabbed the receiver. Static roared in my ear. Then a voice, calm and steady. "You shouldn't have lasted this long." I slammed the phone down. The light outside flared white hot, burning through the window. I couldn't help it. I looked, and I saw them. Dozens of figures standing in the lot. Men, women, children. Some were pale, half transparent. Some were broken in ways I can't describe. And every single one of them was staring directly at me. Their mouths opened in unison. Greater than break the rules. The storage door burst open. Something crawled out. It wasn't a child. It wasn't anything human. Its limbs bent the wrong way. Its face stretched too wide. Its eyes black pits dripping with tar. And yet, when it opened its mouth, it cried in a child's voice, "Daniel, help me." I bolted for the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. The handle burned under my hand, scorching hot from the false sun outside. The figures outside pressed closer, their faces pressed to the glass, smiling. The reflection in the window blinked again, only this time it didn't stop. It moved on its own, grinning wider, teeth splitting skin. I turned back. The creature from the storage room was inches away now, its voice breaking into a chorus of whispers. "It's too late." The lights overhead exploded, plunging the office into darkness. For a moment, silence. And then, nothing. Epilogue. When morning came, the gas station was empty. The pumps were still. The office door ajar. The logbook sat open on the desk. The last entry was scrawled messily in my handwriting, smeared with something dark. Greater than follow the rules. Don't break them. Don't work the night shift. No one ever saw me again. But the rules, they're still on the wall. Waiting for the next poor soul who takes the job.